The sky was dark, and the rain fell slowly through the tall trees. The wind made a soft, whispering sound, and the forest was quiet. John walked carefully along the muddy path, holding his flashlight in one hand. He had lived near these woods for years, but something about tonight felt strange. John was a former soldier. Now working as a forest ranger, he liked the silence of the forest, far away from the noise of the city. But tonight, he felt something was watching him. His boots made soft splashes in the wet ground as he moved forward. Suddenly, he heard a low, painful sound. It was not loud, but it made him stop. He listened carefully, turning off his flashlight for a moment. There it was, again, a soft whimper. Like an injured animal, he followed the sound, walking deeper into the woods, behind a fallen tree. He saw something lying on the ground. At first, he thought it was a wolf or a fox, but when he moved closer, he saw that it was something else. The creature had silver-blue fur that sparkled in the dim light. Its eyes glowed gently, and it had a long, curled tail. It was breathing, but very slowly. John knelt beside it. Unsure of what to do, he looked around, but there was no one. The forest was silent again. The creature opened one eye and looked at him. There was no fear in its gaze, only sadness. John whispered, "You're hurt." The creature blinked once, as if it understood, slowly. He reached out his hand. It didn't move away. He gently touched its fit, was soft and warm. There was blood near its side, a deep wound. John made a decision. He couldn't leave it here, not like this. He carefully lifted the creature in his arms. It was lighter than he expected as he walked back to his cabin. The rain started to fall harder, but he didn't stop. Inside the cabin, he placed the creature on a blanket near the fireplace. He cleaned the wound with warm water and covered it with a clean cloth. The creature didn't struggle, just watched him with tired eyes. John gave it some fruit and water, but it only sniffed the food. Over the next few hours, the creature rested quietly. John sat nearby, watching. He noticed small things, the way it listened to the soft music on the radio, the way it turned away from the light of his phone screen. Once, when John started humming a tune, the creature's tail moved slightly. It seemed to like music. He tried speaking to it, even though he knew it probably didn't understand. But talking made the silence less heavy. "Where did you come from?" he asked. The creature just looked at him. "Are you alone?" Still, no answer, only silence and soft breathing. At night, John stayed on the couch nearby. He kept the fireplace warm and the lights dim. He couldn't sleep well. Something felt strange, but not in a bad way. Just before dawn, he woke up to a soft humming sound. It was not the radio, and it was not a machine. The sound was gentle, like a song without words. He sat up and looked toward the guest room. A soft light was coming from under the door. He stood up slowly and walked toward it. His heart was beating faster. He opened the door, and what he saw made him freeze. The creature was gone. In its place stood a figure, tall, glowing, and not fully human. She had long silver-blue hair and skin that shimmered like moonlight. Her eyes were large and bright, and she wore a strange but beautiful robe. John couldn't speak. He just stared. She looked at him with wide eyes, not afraid, just curious and calm. He finally found his voice. What are you?" he asked. She tilted her head and smiled softly. Then she whispered one word, "Safe." And then everything went quiet. No rain, no wind, no sound, only the soft glow of the morning light and the presence of something not from this world. John didn't know what had just happened, but he knew one thing for sure: his life had just changed forever. The sun had not fully risen. A soft orange light filled the cabin through the window. John stood frozen near the guest room door, his breath caught in his throat, his mind trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The creature he had rescued was now gone. In its place stood a girl, but not like any girl he had ever seen. She was tall, her skin glowing with a soft silver light. Her hair flowed down like liquid moonlight. Shining in waves, she didn't look afraid. Instead, she stood still, hands by her side, watching him. John could feel the warmth coming from her body. Not like heat, but energy. A strange, peaceful energy. He slowly stepped closer. His heart was still racing, but something about her presence calmed him. Her eyes, those glowing alien eyes, watched him with quiet curiosity, as if she was trying to understand him too. I saw you, he said, voice shaky. You were that animal, she nodded slowly. No words, just a gentle movement. Then she pointed to herself and placed her hand over her heart. Naija, she said softly. John repeated it. Naya? She smiled for the first time, small, kind, and somehow sad. He didn't know what to do next. Was she dangerous? Was she in pain? But in her eyes, there was no threat, only tiredness, like someone who had run a long way to find safety. Naija looked down at her own body, then at the room. Her form shimmered slightly, as if her shape was not fully stable. Then, without warning, her knees gave out. John rushed forward and caught her before she fell. She was cold now, shivering. He carried her to the couch and wrapped her in a blanket. Stay with me, he whispered. You're safe here. Her eyes closed slowly, and she drifted into sleep. For the next few hours, John sat beside her. He watched the slow rise and fall of her chest. She looked human, almost too perfect to be real. But he couldn't forget what she had been just hours before. He touched the edge of the blanket, then paused. He looked around the room. Everything felt different now. This wasn't just an injured animal. This was a being from another world. Later that morning, she woke again. This time, her voice was stronger. She tried to speak, but her words were strange in other language. John shook his head. I don't understand. She frowned, then looked around the room, her eyes focused on the radio. The books, the clock. Slowly, she reached out toward the radio. When the music played, she closed her eyes, listening. John stood and brought her water. She drank slowly, then pointed to the window. Danger, she said. Then she made a gesture, like something flying and chasing. John understood a little. You're running. T said. You escaped from something. Naija nodded quickly. She looked scared now, her body trembling again. She touched her arm and then tapped the side of her head. Chased, she said. Captured. Then she held up her hands like they were in chains. John felt a chill down his spine. She wasn't just from another planet. She'd been trapped, maybe by humans, maybe by something else. He felt anger grow inside him. Someone had hurt her, and now she was afraid again. You're safe here, he repeated. I won't let anyone take you. She looked at him, searching his face. Then she said a word that sounded like thank you, but wasn't in English. John didn't need a translator. He felt it. The meaning was clear. She trusted him now, even a little. Outside, the clouds were moving fast. A strange wind was rising, far in the distance. John saw something in the sky, a small flash of light. It was gone in a second, but he didn't like it. Something was coming. Naija felt it too. She looked up sharply and whispered something under her breath. John stood, checking the locks on the doors and windows. He had protected people before, and he would do it again. But this time, it wasn't just about safety. It was about trust. About proving that not all humans were cruel, and maybe, just maybe, about changing everything. The rain had stopped, but the silence that followed was louder than thunder. John sat at the table, staring at the small device Naija had left on the floor. It was smooth, metallic, and glowing softly like a heartbeat. He didn't know what it was, but when she touched it earlier, it lit up and spoke in her language. It wasn't a weapon, at least not yet. But it was a message, a sign of what she had escaped from. Naija stood by the window, watching the sky. Her silver blue hair moved with the wind coming through the small crack in the frame. She hadn't said a word in over an hour, but her eyes were sharp. Scanning the forest beyond the trees, John finally broke the silence. "Are they coming for you?" he asked. Naia turned and nodded once, slowly. Then she lifted her hand and pressed it to her temple. "Track," she said. John's eyes narrowed. "They're tracking you." She nodded again, then held up the small device, her voice calm. "But cold was inside me," she said. John's heart skipped a beat. "You had this inside you." She pointed to her side, where the wound had been. "They put it in before I escaped," she said, voice breaking slightly. "Control watch. Trap." John felt anger rise in his chest. "Who are they?" "Humans?" he asked, not sure if he wanted the answer. Naia didn't speak, but her expression said everything. They had taken her freedom, her body, and maybe even her memories. She had escaped, but the damage was deep. John looked at her with a mix of sympathy and guilt. He couldn't believe someone from Earth could do that. But part of him feared it was true. Not all humans were kind. Some would hurt anything they didn't understand. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Naia's eyes went wide, and she stepped back from the window. John stood quickly, grabbing the flashlight. "Stay here," he said. "I'll check outside." He opened the door slowly and stepped into the cold air. Everything looked normal. No vehicles, no sound, no movement. But he felt it. Something was wrong. He walked around the cabin, scanning the trees. Then he saw it barely visible in the mud. A boot print, too large to be his. Too fresh to be old. John returned quickly, locking the door behind him. "They're close," he said. Naia nodded. But she didn't panic. Instead, she reached into her coat and pulled out a small disc. She pressed it to her neck, and a light passed over her skin. Her body shimmered again, but this time, it didn't change. "Cloak weak," she said. "Energy low. You can't hide anymore, John." Said she looked at him, her voice suddenly serious. "If they catch me, they erase me." "Erase you?" he asked. Naija touched her forehead gently. "Not just memory," she said. "Life." John's jaw clenched. He had seen war, death, and cruelty before. But this was something worse. She wasn't just hunted. She was targeted for deletion. He opened a drawer and pulled out a map. "We need to move," he said. "There's an old bunker 10 miles from here, built during the Cold War. No signals, no power, it's safe." Naija looked at the map, then at John. "You help?" she asked. John looked at her without hesitation. "Yes." For a moment, she said nothing. Then she reached out and placed her hand over his. "Trust," she whispered. John nodded as they packed quickly. Naija paused. She took the small tracking device and placed it on a squirrel outside the cabin. It ran into the forest, disappearing between the trees by time, she said. Smart, John thought. Very smart. They left before the sun reached the sky, walking through thick trees, over rivers, and under heavy clouds. John carried a small bag of supplies. Naija walked lightly beside him. Though weak, she moved with purpose. By nightfall, they reached a rocky hill with a hidden entrance. John punched in an old code on a rusted panel. The metal door creaked open, revealing cold darkness inside. They stepped in, and the door closed behind them. Inside, there were no lights, no sound, just a long, narrow hallway that led into the unknown, but for the first time in days, they were invisible, safe for now. Naija sat down on an old bench, breathing deeply. John watched her and said quietly, "Whatever they did to you, it ends here." Naija looked at him and gave a soft, tired smile, and in that hidden silence, miles away from the world, a fragile bond of survival and trust began to grow stronger. The wind outside the bunker howled like a warning. Underground, the air was still, heavy and cold. Old wires hung from the ceiling, and rust crept across the metal walls like time had been bleeding slowly through the place. But inside that quiet space, Naja finally slept. John didn't. He sat near the entrance, watching a small motion sensor flicker with light he had placed it there hours ago, a last line of warning. His fingers held a cold metal mug. But he wasn't drinking. He couldn't stop thinking, not just about the strangers who might be coming, but about Najab, about what they had done to her, about the kind of world that would treat a living, thinking being like a thing. She stirred in her sleep, her breath catching for a moment. He walked over and placed a blanket over her shoulder. She looked peaceful in sleep, but her hands trembled. As if even her dreams weren't safe. He knew that feeling too well. But John wasn't the only one watching that night. Far away, deep inside a dark van parked on the side of a lonely road. 3 men in black uniforms sat in silence. Screens lit their faces in cold blue. One of the screens showed forest terrain. Blinking red dot, moving fast. Decoy, one of them muttered. The red dot, the squirrel with the tracker, was running west, far from the real trail, but the lead agent, a pale man with sharp eyes, wasn't fooled. "She's smarter than we thought," he said. He touched the screen and switched views. Thermal scan, satellite feed, energy spikes. Then he froze. A faint energy pulse barely visible coming from the hills. "Found you," he whispered. His voice had no joy in it, only hunger. Back at the bunker, Naja woke suddenly. Her eyes opened wide, glowing faintly in the dark. John was already awake, looking at her. "What is it?" he asked. She sat up, breathing fast. "Dream," she said. "Bad place, many eyes, red suits, pain." John nodded slowly. "They might be close," he said. She touched the floor, then closed her eyes. Her fingers began to glow lightly as she whispered something in her language. The floor vibrated for a moment. "What are you doing?" John asked. "Scan," she replied. She opened her eyes and pointed to the far wall. 3, maybe 4. "Coming." John grabbed his pack and handed her a flashlight. "We can't fight them here," he said. Naya stood, now fully alert. "They want me alive," she said. "You." "Maybe not." John gave a half smile. "Let them try," he said. Loading a small pistol he had kept hidden, Naja tilted her head, looking at the weapon. "That is very small," she said with a soft laugh. "It's not about size," John replied. "It's about timing." She smiled for just a second, then nodded. They moved through a narrow tunnel leading to the back of the bunker. The air was damp, filled with dust and silence. Behind them, footsteps echoed faintly through the vents. The agents were inside now, moving slowly. Their lights cut through the darkness like blades. They spoke into radios, scanning every wall, every shadow. "She was here," one said. "Fresh heat signature, secure the exits," the leader ordered. They didn't know Naja had already left through the rear passage, and they didn't know what waited for them above ground. John and Naya reached the surface through a hidden hatch. The sky above them was cloudy, moonlight barely showing. They ran across the rocks and trees, every step silent but urgent. Then Naya stopped. She turned, her eyes glowing brighter now. "They are not just men," she said. John looked confused. "What do you mean?" "They wear human skin," she said. "But inside?" "Not like you." John didn't have time to ask more. They had to move. He led her to an old ranger cabin he had used years ago. Half buried in earth and covered in moss, it looked abandoned. Inside, they lit a small lamp. Naja sat quietly while John locked the door behind them. She held a small silver sphere in her hand, technology from her world. "It hides energy," she explained, "for a short time." John looked through the window, his eyes sharp. "We'll make a stand if we have to," he said. Naya met his gaze. "Why help me?" she asked softly. He took a deep breath. "Because you didn't ask to be hunted," he said. "And because I've seen what happens when good people stay quiet." She looked down, then back at him. "Then I fight too," she said. He smiled. "Good." Outside, the hunters searched, but inside the hidden cabin, the hunted were becoming something else, ready, not just to run, but to resist. The storm had passed, but the air inside the cabin was heavy with silence. It was the kind of silence that didn't mean safety. It meant waiting, breathing slowly, listening for danger that might still be near. Neja sat by the small oil lamp, her eyes reflecting the soft orange light. She held a piece of earth-rutan apple in both hands like it was a new discovery. She turned it slowly, sniffed it once, then took a small bite, her face wrinkled in surprise, then softened into a smile. "Sweet," she said. John chuckled from across the room. "Better than the protein packs you've been eating," he replied. She nodded, taking another bite. This was the first time she had eaten without fear. No fast chewing, no looking over her shoulder. Just calm, quiet chewing. John noticed it too, for a moment. It didn't feel like a man hiding with an alien. It felt like two people, simply sharing a quiet evening. John sat on the edge of an old couch, checking a small radio for signals. All he got was static. He looked up. "You ever seen anything like that before?" Neja tilted her head. "No music," she said. "No people either," John added. Neja placed the apple core gently in a tin bowl, then stood and walked over to him. She sat beside him, close but not too close. "Earth feels quiet," she said. "It isn't always like this," John replied. "But when it is, I kind of like it." She nodded again, her eyes studying his face. Lines of pain, small scars, tired eyes. She touched his hand gently. "You carry hurt," she said. John looked down at her fingers, resting on his skin. He didn't pull away. "I've lost people," he said. "Not in war, but after. Some things follow you home." Neja didn't speak for a while. Then she said, "Same." She placed her other hand over her heart. "My people. Gone." John turned toward her fully. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Neja smiled. "But it was a sad one." "You listen," she said. "Most humans don't." John raised an eyebrow. "You've met others." She looked away. "Not kind." She whispered. He didn't press. Some stories didn't need to be told to be understood. They sat in silence again, but it was a different kind now. It was soft, almost peaceful. Neja reached into her coat and pulled out a small round device. It opened like a flower, light glowing softly. She pressed a button and a tiny hologram appeared her home. Floating islands, golden skies, creatures flying like birds but glowing. John stared in awe. "It's beautiful," he said. Neja's eyes shined. "It was," she whispered. The light from the hologram lit their faces. In that moment, John realized something. She wasn't just a survivor. She was someone who had lost everything and still kept hope. Suddenly, the radio crackled. John leaned forward. Adjusting the dial, a broken voice came through the static. "Forest perimeter. No sign. Continue sweep." John turned it off quickly. Neja looked at him, close. He nodded, still searching, but not near yet. She stood and paced the room, her body tense again, like a wild animal remembering the cage. John watched her, then stood too. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "They won't find us." "Here," he said. She didn't answer, but she didn't move away either. Instead, she said, "You trust me?" John replied without thinking. "Yes." She turned to him, surprised. "Even if I hide things." He met her eyes. "I've hidden things too." Trust doesn't mean having all the answers. He thought it means choosing to believe anyway. Neja stepped back and lifted her hand. A soft blue light formed above her palm. In the center, a symbol appeared. It pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. "This is part of me," she said. "My code, my signal." John looked confused. "It tells others who I am," she explained. "Why are you showing me?" he asked. "Because," she said, "if I don't return, you'll know who I was." He stared at the light, then at her. "You're not dying," he said firmly. "We're getting out of this." She smiled again, brighter this time. "Maybe," she said, "but if not, I wanted someone to remember." John didn't have an answer to that, but in his heart, something shifted. He wasn't just protecting her anymore. He was standing beside her. Not as a ranger, not as a soldier, but as someone who believed she deserved more than survival. She deserved to be seen. Outside, the wind picked up again. The search would continue. But so would the bond, and sometimes the strongest weapon wasn't a gun or a shield. It was trust. Asterisk, the ground shook before the sound reached them. A deep boom rolled through the trees like thunder. But this thunder didn't come from the sky. It came from engines, big ones. John jumped to his feet and grabbed his radio. Nothing but static again. Naya was already by the window, her face pale. "They're here," she whispered. "No more searching, no more guessing." The hunters had found them, not by mistake, not by luck, but by force. John opened the hatch under the floor, pulling out a metal box. Inside was an old rifle, dusty but clean. He checked the barrel, then loaded a clip without saying a word. Nija stood still, watching him closely. "You were ready," she said. He looked at her, eyes cold but calm. "I hoped I wouldn't need it," he said. "Looks like hope wasn't enough outside." The sound of boots on leaves grew louder. No voices, no lights, just the slow, steady rhythm of professionals. They weren't knocking. They were surrounding. Nija touched the small silver orb she always carried. This time it glowed red. Energy spike detected. She said, "Weapons active." John cursed under his breath. "Is there a way out?" he asked. She nodded through the back. "But we have to split power," he frowned. "What do you mean?" Naya stepped closer. "I can give all the power to cloak you," she said, "but I'll be seen." John's voice rose. "That's not happening." She reached out and touched his chest. "If they take both of us, it's over," she said. "But if you escape, there's still a chance." John shook his head. "No," he said. "We finish this together." Neja stared at him, confused and moved. "No one ever said that to me before." "Well," John said, "someone should have." They moved fast. John set up traps, simple but smart. Tripwires, smoke bombs, flashlights wired to explode with sparks. Nija activated the last of her tech. The room was glowing faintly now. Lines of alien symbols flickered across the walls. Her shield pulsed with life. But it wouldn't last long. Then came the first knock. Not a friendly one. A metal fist on wood. Then a voice calm, robotic. "You have 30 seconds to surrender." "The target," John shouted back. "She's not a target." "Wrong answer," the voice replied. A flash grenade burst through the window. Light filled the room, followed by smoke. But John was ready. He fired once, twice heard a shout and a thud. Neja held her shield up. Glowing blue now. A blast hit the wall behind her, tearing it open. Dust and splinters flew through the air, but she didn't fall. John grabbed her hand. "We move now," he said. They dashed toward the hidden exit under the back shelf. More blasts shook the cabin behind them. They crawled through a tunnel, barely big enough for one. Their hands scraped on stone, knees bruised from crawling. But they didn't stop. Behind them, voices grew louder, closer. Then they reached the old hatch near the river. John pushed it open, the cold air rushing in. Naya climbed out first, scanning the woods. All clear for now. They ran, feet sinking into wet soil, branches tearing at their clothes. John's breath came hard and fast. Nija moved with strange speed. Like the forest bent around her, they reached the ridge above the valley. From there, they could see the burning cabin. A helicopter hovered above it, searchlights spinning. "Too many," John muttered. Nija knelt and pressed her hand to the ground. A small panel lit up under the moss. She looked at John last. "Option," he nodded. "Do it." The ground shook again, this time from below. A pulse of blue light exploded across the valley. The enemy's tech failed. Lights cut out. Weapons went silent. From the helicopter, sparks flew as the engine died. It dropped sideways into the trees, not crashing but forced to land. Naya collapsed beside John. "Breathing hard, that was all I had," she said. John picked her up gently. "Then it was worth it." He looked down at the valley. The hunters were still alive, but blind, lost in the forest. And for once, the hunted had won. John turned to Nija. "You still think we have no chance?" She smiled weakly. "I think. Okay. We just made one." The stars returned first. One by one, they blinked back into the sky, as if the forest had earned the right to see them again. Smoke from the ruined cabin still floated in the night air, but the fire was gone. Only the silence remained now, thick and real. John sat near the edge of a high rock, overlooking the valley where it had all happened. Beside him, Nija lay resting, wrapped in a silver emergency blanket. She was quiet, her eyes half closed, glowing gently in the dark. She wasn't unconscious, just tired, completely, deeply tired. "They're not chasing us anymore," John said softly. Nija didn't reply. She didn't need to. Her silence said she already knew. A breeze moved through the trees, soft like a whisper. Above them, the moon had broken through the clouds. It cast a light over the forest that looked almost like the skies in her memory, golden, floating endless. Nija reached up slowly and pointed toward the stars. "One of those," she said, "is mine." John followed her finger. "So, you're going home?" he said. She didn't answer right away. "My signal went out last night," she said. "I sent it before we ran." John blinked, surprised. "You called someone?" She nodded. "My people will come. Not to fight, just to find." "And if they do?" he asked. She closed her eyes. "I go back," she said. A long pause. "But," she added, "I will miss Earth." John looked at her, his voice low. "You'll miss apples and flashlights." Nija smiled. "I'll miss you," she said. That quiet hit deeper than any gunshot. John didn't know what to say. He looked down at his hands, rough hands scarred from years of war and loss, now holding peace for the first time in forever. "You're the first person who's ever looked at me like I wasn't broken," he said. Naya sat up slowly, still weak. "You are not broken," she said. "You are healing." John gave a small smile. "I don't know what to do if you leave," he admitted. Naya tilted her head. "You protected me," she said. "Now you protect others. I'm no hero." He said, "You are to me," she replied. The wind moved again. A soft hum filled the air, a new sound, not earthborn, not from any human machine. Nija looked to the sky. "It's them," she said. A thin line of light stretched across the stars, growing. Moving, her ship was arriving. John stood, heart heavy. "Will they take you far?" "Very far," she said. "But maybe forever." The light above became brighter. Soft beams reached down like arms, coming to lift her home. She turned to him. "You can come with me," she said. Quietly, John froze. "You're serious?" "Yes," she said. "You have nothing tying you here." He looked around at the trees, the stars, the smoke in the air. He thought of everything he had lost. Then he looked at her. "You gave me something to live for again," he said. "But Earth still needs people who care." Nija nodded, not hurt, just understanding. "Then this is goodbye." "No," he said. This is until she smiled at that one final smile full of light. She walked to the beam of light and paused. Then she turned and pressed something into his hand. A small crystal, glowing faintly blue. "For when you want to find me," she said. And then she stepped into the light. It lifted her gently, her form glowing brighter as she rose. No sound, no fire, just grace. And then she was going to know the stars. John stood alone, but for the first time, he didn't feel alone. He looked down at the crystal in his hand. It was warm, and somewhere deep inside, he knew he would see her again. Not just in dreams, not just in memories, but when the stars aligned once more, he turned back toward the forest, toward Earth, toward the people who still needed someone like him, and behind him, above him. Beyond him, Naya watched from the stars, not afraid, not hiding, not alone, just waiting.